Hey everybody, this is my spotted tilapia. Sorry about all the glare on the tank. It was kind of spur of the moment video. I was coming in here to turn the lights out, and I noticed something that I saw this morning when I turned the lights on, but I wasn't 100% sure what I was looking at. I thought maybe it was just the way the tilapia had been in there kicking its tail fin around, you know, scattering up the gravel, and it was kind of forming a little pile here in the front. But I think at this point there can be no doubt about it. That is very obviously nesting behavior. So I don't know if that means this is a male or a female. I would suspect it means it's a male, if I understand correctly. It's usually the male cichlids that do all the digging and burrowing out to make the nests. And then of course we've got all the really vibrant color on this one, if we could ever really get a good look at it. Unfortunately, we're getting a look at all that vibrant green cyanobacteria that's starting to take over this tank. But the colors on this tilapia are absolutely outstanding. It's got that beautiful red trim around the tips of its fins. It's got all that white marking in there, and then of course it's got all that beautiful blush color on it. And it's just a gorgeous fish. And I gotta say, for a cichlid, which I never realized it was for the longest time, somebody said that it was a cichlid, and I had to actually look it up because I was going to tell them, no, it's not a cichlid, it's a tilapia. But it is indeed a cichlid, and as far as cichlids go, it's pretty chilled out. I don't get a lot of aggression with this. When I had it in my other tank with my, I don't even remember what fish I had it with now, but I remember I was getting some aggression between them. I think it was my 125, and I want to say my Tenopoma, but don't hold me to that. But I did have it in a different tank, and eventually it ended up over here in this 125-gallon native tank, simply because that was the only other tank I had that was big enough to effectively house such a large fish. And so it's ended up over here all this time. So there's no worry about me getting rid of it. You know, I've talked a lot about this tank recently, and I've talked a lot about wanting to do some stuff with it. I almost got in here today and removed a bunch of these fish. I even emptied out a bucket and got a bucket prepared to bring down here to catch some, but I never wound up getting around to doing it. Something came up, and I wound up running up to the store, and before you know it, it was, you know, getting dark out, and now here we are. It's time for lights to go out, and I never did anything with that. So, just a quick update. There's my Chinese algae eater. We don't see that one too terribly often. That's another one that'll probably just wind up staying in the tank. The only fish I really need to get out of the tank is going to be any larger predatory fish, because what I'm hoping to be able to do is stock this tank with a lot of smaller fish, and whether they are smaller native fish or they're other kind of fish, you know, time will tell. But I'm leaning towards native fish, and I'm leaning towards like larger schools of smaller ones, like the rosy-side dace, for example. And of course we have gambusia around here, gambusia being sort of like the wild cousins of, look at those colors, that is just amazing. And this isn't even under any kind of high-quality lighting or anything. That is just LED shop lights from Walmart, and you're seeing that much color on that fish. So we do have the native gambusia. Again, the native gambusia is sort of like a wild guppy, kind of colorless and bland, but they look just like guppies. They behave just like guppies. So I can usually find them swimming around by the thousands if I go to the right place and scoop some up. You know, I don't know. There's options for putting a lot of smaller fish in this tank, but I really want to reduce all these larger fish in this huge bioload I've got in here. So any of these kind of fish, you know, even if I were to leave, say, one of these sunfish, that would very much eat any small fish I have in here. I don't think the tilapia will. I don't think the tilapia is particularly predatory. From what I've gathered in my experience is that it likes vegetation more than anything. I generally put algae wafers in the tank down at this end, both for my pleco, which I don't see, but it's usually around here somewhere. And then I also make sure that this tilapia has lots of algae pellets and algae wafers on the bottom because it eats them more than it eats any other kind of food I've seen in the tank. I also see it eat away at the water Sprite. For my regular viewers, you'll remember that not long ago, I put so much water Sprite in this tank, you couldn't believe it. And I have pulled a little bit of it out to sell. I do sell my water Sprite. I'll put my email down below if you're interested in any of it. But I've only pulled a little bit out. I mean, really, seriously, I've only pulled a little bit out. And look at how much is left. So the stuff's getting devoured. I'm sure the creek chubs nibble on it. I'm pretty sure the sunfish nibble on it. But I know this tilapia tends to nibble on it. So I'm not too worried about the tilapia eating any smaller fish that I might catch and put in this tank. I don't think that's going to be an issue by keeping the tilapia. So the idea is probably going to be the big tilapia that usually just kind of hangs out in this corner whenever I'm around, and then schools of smaller fish. I doubt we're going to have any crayfish, but I don't know. You never know. The options would be either crayfish on the bottom and no other type bottom-dwelling fish, or I can have maybe some darters and some sculpins and that sort of thing, but I will not be able to have crayfish if I did that. So I'm going to have to make a choice between what I want in there. And I suppose I could always switch it up. I could put some crayfish in there for a while. When we're tired of those, I could always get rid of the crayfish and then add some fish later. Crayfish are easy enough to catch when I want to get them out of the tank, so they would be the ones I would start with if I was going to go that route. So anyway, just a brief sort of impromptu update. My real goal was to get a little bit of a look at this tilapia and show you all his handiwork. I'm going to go out on a limb and say his. I think that's a male. But definitely showing some sort of nesting behavior, piling all those gravel up and, digging out that burrow in the corner there like that. So, alright everybody, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. And, of course, you don't want to miss what's going to eventually happen to this native tank. But don't, get your hopes up too fast. You never know when it's going to happen. Just that it will happen at some point. So, thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.